The lights are on bright. Not really, because it's ginormous after dark, but it is still always time to dance. The camera quality is not that great, as we can see. I am filming in my room today, and it's not great, but you know what? I want to do it. I'm here. The NBA trade market doesn't sleep, and neither does ginormous. So let's talk about it. How's everybody doing today? Hope everyone's having a fantastic night. It is June 24th, 2025. And just as of a couple days ago, the NBA trade market has been going crazy, especially with the Kevin Durant trade to the Houston Rockets, which I would like to discuss a little bit later on in the show. But being the hometown boy from the New England area that I am, I would like to start off talking about the Boston Celtics and the moves that they have made yesterday as of last night and today, of course, and any other future moves that they will make, which we have talked about on Conti and Nick, which we talked about in Ginormous number 4. But let's talk about it. So, first off, we are going to go into the Drew Holiday trade. That was the first one that happened into the off season so far. And I understand how some people can look at it a certain way and say, hey, look, you're losing a lot of that veteran leadership. You're losing a lot of kind of that adult in the room. But if Al Horford is staying, guys, if Derek White is here, and I know that he's not really UNC status yet, but he's still that veteran. And if we're being honest with guys, it's time for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. It's time for them to take that UNC status. It's time for them to take that role model status because, Lord knows that they're being paid like the people who should be leading the team. So, Drew Holiday was a fantastic addition to this team when it happened. I'm so glad that we had him for the time that we did, and I'm very grateful for his contributions to the Boston Celtics. But we got Anthony Simons back. He's on an expiring deal, but he is a lot younger. I think that even though his defense leaves a lot to be desired, because everything that I've read and everything that I've heard, Anthony Simons is a non-existent defender, let alone a below-average one. But you know what? I think with the Celtics, the culture of not trying to defend or not putting at least some effort into defend is unacceptable. So I really do think that the culture in Boston will be a lot different from the culture in Portland, where it's just a bunch of young guys trying to earn their keep. This year, and every year pretty much for the Boston Celtics for as long as they have the Jays, the championship or bust mode, even with Tatum gone, is in full effect. So guess what? The people are going to expect full maximum effort, and if Anthony Simons doesn't give that, then the Celtics fans will let him hear it. And hello, the ding people texting me now. I'm going to have to find a way to get that off of there, but hey, it is what it is. Swervy Kirby, hello Dom. Ginormous After Dark, that is right. We are doing kind of an impromptu episode today. I had a very long day at work, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do any preparation. I'm not going to write any notes because before all my ginormous episodes, I write notes. I kind of go into it and try to be thorough with what I want to say, what I want to write, and come prepared. But you know what? I go today, I'm going commando. I'm shooting from the hip, and whatever is said is said. So, hope everyone here enjoys. But yeah, so with that Drew Holiday trade, look, in essence, it's very sad to see him go, and I do want to thank him for his contributions to this team because he was a big part of us winning a championship, and he did kind of lead a lot of that. Let her rip, that's right. And he did lead a lot of veteran leadership to this team, and I am thankful for that. But it is time. He's going to be 36 years old. He is kind of at the back end. I'm not saying he has nothing left in him because he's still a very valuable player, valuable enough to where Portland felt as though they could trade a 26-year-old Anthony Simons, who still does have a lot of upside, and some would argue is just now entering his prime. So he does have a lot of legs to him still, that presumably. But with the Celtics, I believe it was time to get rid of him, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully. We had to get under that second apron. So in that sense, and in conclusion, thank you, Drew Holiday. You're a great player for many teams, but your time in Boston has come and gone. So now we're talking about the most recent one. We are going to go into the Kristaps Porzingis trade, where it was a 3-team trade with Brooklyn, Atlanta, and Boston. But the Boston Celtics getting the main part of it with Georges Niang. Please correct me if I'm saying it wrong, or tell me if I'm saying it wrong, and a second-round pick. So, looking at it, this is going to be one of those trades that I alluded to, me and Will alluded to in the first episode of the relaunch of Conti and Nick, where we said that, we thought that the Celtics were going to have to kind of take some losses, kind of bite the bullet on a lot of trades to get under that second apron, get under that luxury. And unfortunately, I do think that this was one of those, but it wasn't unexpected. This was a trade that we all saw and we were like, okay, he's injury prone. He's obviously great when he's on the floor offensively and defensively, provides you that kind of spark that you need offensively, and really took them over the top. But of course, the problem is health. And I've said this before, but with the Celtics, they've had Kristaps and Time Lord for their back-to-back starting centers in different years of them playing recently, and you just need more dependability when it comes to your front court, because Rob Williams, he was a great shot blocker, a really good defender, athletic guy in the paint, great guy to have when he's healthy. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis, a great guy to have in the paint, somebody who can stretch the floor, shoot those threes, extend that range, and really put stress on your defense. ... When he's healthy. So these are really back-to-back guys in previous iterations of these teams that we're looking at, and we're like, yeah, man, like this team is going to get over that hump if they're healthy. This team is going to do great things if they're healthy. And obviously they won the championship last year, and they went into the second round this year, and who knows what would have happened if Tatum went down, even though I think the Knicks still would have won. But had we had a consistently healthy Porzingis, who's to say we wouldn't be, kind of in a better spot that we're in right now? Maybe we're hosting up the trophy 2 years in a row, or at least in the NBA Finals again, or at the very, very least in the Eastern Conference Finals again. So I think that number one priority, and I've said this many times, is to get a dependable big man, somebody who can play. One of my good buddies said this earlier today. Mark Dusnap, shout out to him, great guy, and Conti League Fantasy Football champion last season. Let's see if he can defend it 2 years in a row. But he said that we need this. The Celtics need a big man who can play at least 70 games if we're going to keep Al Horford, and if we're going to have him be our reserve guy and still get the most of him at this advanced age. And you know what? I completely agree with him. I think that needs to be priority number one for the Celtics. Now, whether or not it be through the draft, whether or not it be through guys coming up from the G League, kind of like Kada, or maybe some other guys who have come up and developing and working their way up into the Celtics team, or whether it be through trade or free agency. I think that is the number one priority that needs to happen after, obviously, what has happened with getting under the second apron with the luxury tax. And kind of going into that Kristaps Porzingis trade, I know we kind of got off topic there. Gorgeous Niang, look, he's a fine player. He averages about 10 points a game on any given season. Like, he's good, solid wing depth. Nick, nothing too spectacular about him. Kind of what you would expect kind of from a higher level team. Somebody who it's like, okay, our guy needs a breather. All right, bring in Niang. Bring in Niang. Okay, whatever. That's kind of what the type of player he is. But you know what? He does have a reputation in this town, in this city, of being a dirty player. Remember his time on the Philadelphia 76ers. He was sitting on the bench and he grabbed Jaylen Brown's net leg, which a lot of people, especially from this town, and I don't doubt them and blame them, consider to be a dirty play. So who's to say if he'll stay or not? If the fan base rejects him, then, maybe that puts a little bit of pressure on the front office. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But who's to say what's going to happen or what it's going to be? But for now, overall, I think the Celtics so far have done the job and what they've needed to do with getting rid of Holiday, with getting rid of Porzingis. And I would have liked to keep Holiday to kind of keep that veteran presence around, but I do completely understand where the Celtics are coming from. Not only, like I said, getting under that apron, but allowing the Jays, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, to be that actual veteran presence and kind of take that true leader of the team form. Because, yes, they're the best players on the team, but when you have veterans in there who are in their mid to late 30s, I'm not going to say that Al and Drew were the leaders, but when you're looking for advice, would you rather go to the Jays who are in their prime, or Al Horford, who is 38, 39, however old he is years old, someone who's seen everything, been everywhere. And then the same can be said for Drew Holiday, somebody who's won championships in multiple different destinations. So that's just my take on that. Where I would like to see the Celtics go from here, I would like to see them get rid of Sam Hauser. And it's no disrespect, Sam Hauser does serve his role. He is a good player, and he does fill a purpose and take valuable minutes off of the bench, which does create depth. He's a great story, and he earned that contract extension for a reason. Hey, Will Nick in the chat. What's good? What's good, man? How you doing? Can't wait for the next In the Nick of Time. When he comes out for it, make sure you subscribe to that show. Make sure you listen, like, share, and subscribe to that show, and it will be good stuff. He will be trying to stream on TikTok, connecting it. They're giving him a lot of trouble for whatever reason, but make sure when In the Nick of Time does come out that you listen and give it all the support that you give Ginormous, because Will deserves it. And he just had a viral video on Instagram as well. So that is that. Whoop. So, getting back into it, what I think the Celtics should do from here is I definitely do think that they need to move from Sam Hauser because, look, again, he earned his contract extension for a reason, but guys like him really are a dime a dozen. And I've said this before several times, but if Baylor Shireman, somebody who we drafted in the first round last season, shows what he can do on a more consistent basis like he did last season, then I really do think that makes Sam Hauser expendable. And I'm not going to argue, and I'm kind of moving on to a different player here, I'm not going to argue Peyton Pritchard's value to this team. He was the sixth man of the year. Once again, he served his role. He served his purpose. He did what he had to do in order to contribute to a successful championship-winning team. But you tell me if Peyton Pritchard's value is ever going to be higher than it is right now. I'm not saying you'll get, a king's ransom for him. I don't think you're going to get what you would get from Desmond Bane or like a Mikal Bridges. But is Peyton Pritchard's trade value ever going to be this high again? He did just get an extension, but again, is it ever going to be this high again? So this week, hopefully, yeah, absolutely, man. I sure hope so as well. So, but yeah, getting back to it, I would not be opposed if the price is right, because of course, like, you're not just making these moves for the sake of making these moves. But if the price is right, you do it. Like, the price is right, you absolutely do it. Pritch trade for a big, Willie Nick just said. Maybe you get Mark Williams. Look, man, if you can get a guy the caliber of Mark Williams, who was a really good center for the Charlotte Hornets, and then, like, the Lakers for an hour, and then the Charlotte Hornets again, I'd say you do it. I'd say you do it, because especially with you bringing in Anthony Simons, that I'm not saying that Anthony Simons is a bench caliber player. Obviously, somebody who's able to average 20 points a game is going to be somebody who is valuable to you and somebody who can bring you a lot of valuable minutes in your starting lineup. But again, I do think with Simons, Pritchard becomes expendable, and if you can use that to kind of trade for a big, then I would do it. I would do it. And like Will said, if it's from Mark Williams, a guy of his caliber, then yes, I would do it. Now again, like, the price has to be right. Like, yeah, I'm not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but yeah, like, that's what I would do. But I'm happy that I'm not happy that we got rid of Holiday. I would have liked to see him stay. I understand it. Kristaps Porzingis, I'm very happy that we got rid of, because we had to. He's just not dependable. The best ability is availability, and Kristaps Porzingis simply did not provide that for us. And Hauser, I would be happy to see gone. I'm not necessarily sure that. I'm trying to say this in a nice way. I'm not necessarily sure that on this team he's really needed. Sorry, that's harsh. And then Peyton Pritchard as well. Again, keep him if you're not getting anything that you deem to be acceptable for an offer or a package back. But I don't take anything off the table. And if we're being honest with ourselves here, is getting rid of Sam Hauser and is getting rid of Peyton Pritchard really considered tearing it down to the studs? Because I don't think so. I've heard a lot of things say, like, we can't tear into this team too far. This team was only one season away from winning a championship, removed from winning a championship. Do you really want to tear it down to the studs? And I don't see a world where your team truly suffers that bad and bottoms out and hits rock bottom from trading guys like Hauser and Peyton Pritchard. That's just my opinion. Maybe they're a lot more valuable to this team than I thought, but I don't know if they're as valuable as a lot of people make them out to be. And that's just I'm trying to be honest with my assessment here. Second apron, Willie Nick says second apron is low key ruining the league in my opinion. Even teams like OKC has to choose between J-Dub and Chet soon. Will, I don't disagree with you. Like, I don't disagree that it's kind of a shame that we don't get to see these super teams. But at the end of the day, I do see and semi-agree with where Adam Silver was coming from when he wanted to create a little bit more parity in the NBA. Like, I know that the ratings, like the viewership and the general interest was down because of this NBA Finals when we saw Indiana versus OKC. I know those aren't big market teams and aren't necessarily like the sexy, flashy names. But at the same time, I do think it is really nice to see a lot of these new teams and a lot of teams that go about building their franchises and teams kind of in a different way, in a more small market way, kind of get their flowers, And again, I don't inherently, I don't completely disagree with you on its face, but I do think that the second apron does have its benefits, because then you can't just be paying everybody if you're a big market team, and you can't just be, signing everybody to super max deals. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I do think that the second apron does have its benefits. And, look, we won a championship. The Celtics did it by making very smart trades for very good players. But, when you sell all out for a championship, eventually, when that window kind of closes, at least for the short time being, which is right now, you do kind of have to pay for it. And I do believe that if Kristaps Porzingis obviously was able to stay healthy, we'd get a player a lot better than Gorgie Niang. I'm sorry, I'm butchering his name so bad. I don't care. He tried to hurt Jaylen Brown. I'm going to say your name wrong on purpose for all I care. But yeah, like I said, on his face, I don't totally disagree with you, Will, but yeah. Swervy Kirby, Dom, Game 7 of the 2025 NBA Finals was the most watched NBA Finals game in 6 years, averaging 16.1 million viewers on ABC. At its peak, it had 20 million viewers. Glad real ball watchers tuned in. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be the first to admit, I loved basketball. Growing up when I was in high school, even a couple of years after graduating high school, I was really hardcore into the NBA, following it. As I've gotten older, I've kind of gone a lot more into baseball. I've kind of turned my intrigue to that sport, but I still keep my finger on the pulse of what is going on, obviously, in the basketball world. I have a sports podcast, so why wouldn't I try to cater to every audience? But yeah, so that's what I'd have to say about that. Yeah, and I'm glad that a lot of people who do truly care about the sport of basketball do tune in no matter what the teams are. But I will say this, Dom, I do think that a lot of that high viewership does kind of contribute to the fact that this was the first Game 7 in the NBA Finals that we've seen in a long time. Oh, Georges Niang. Okay, thank you for the clarification, Dom. Just so you know, I really appreciate it. I'm not going to put my phone out on a live stream, but I can't take a picture of that, so I'm not going to remember it. But your contributions are gladly appreciated to this program. Thank you. I sound like PBS. But, so kind of going into the Kevin Durant real quick, I want to give a couple of minutes to this, because it's not really something that I got to cover or that me and Will got to cover. I want to know who Kevin Durant has pictures on in the NBA. I want to know what dirt Kevin Durant has on whatever executives that the league has, because for whatever reason, this man continues to get king's ransoms traded for him, and I don't understand it. I don't know what Kevin Durant has done, especially in these past 2 years in Phoenix, to warrant the big trade packages that he always has been getting. He's a big name. He's great. This show is sponsored by viewers like you. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm glad you get it. I'm glad you're an old head like me, Dom. But I'm not sure what Kevin Durant has done to kind of garner this attention, this level of kind of, what am I trying to say here, trade value from these teams. But with the Houston Rockets, man, I don't see this working out. Now, a lot of people will argue that Ime Udoka is kind of the coach that Kevin Durant needs, and he's not going to go anywhere unless he decides to think with the head that's not on top of his cranium again. But I don't see it working out. Ime Udoka is an incredible coach. He sets an incredible culture. Obviously, Houston went to whole new heights that we did not see since the James Harden days this year with Ime Udoka, and then obviously they add Kevin Durant. So that roster does look like it's going to be good, even though they got rid of Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green. They're going to have Shepard, their point guard, who they really like in the first round last year. They're going to have Kevin Durant. They're still going to have VanVleet. They're going to have Jabari Smith and Sengun. So that starting five on paper is really good. But Kevin Durant is known to kill teams. Kevin Durant is known to bring down the culture in a locker room. And this is kind of what I would compare it to, because when we had Jake on in our Conte and Nick episode, we were talking about Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. And there was a debate. Jake felt a little differently than me and Will, and I'm glad that it was a debate. But I do think that even though Mike Tomlin and/or slash Ime Udoka set that hard precedent in the locker room, I'm not so sure that a little bit of that negativity is going to leak into that locker room for both of the respective teams and respective sports. Now, Kevin Durant is known for getting coaches fired. Kevin Durant is known for getting a lot of players on and off the team, creating a lot of dysfunction. He wanted Bradley Beal. He got Bradley Beal. And what did that turn into? Okay, obviously Devin Booker was on that team, but he wanted Budenholzer gone. He got Budenholzer off. Yes, Chrissy, I completely thank you, Chrissy, for that contribution, because Kevin Durant pisses me off as well. I dislike Kevin Durant. I think that he is an absolute snake, and he is rightfully named and called a snake. But some snakes hide in the grass, and I think that's what Kevin Durant likes to do with all those burner accounts. So, but kind of going into it, like I said, he got Budenholzer fired. He got I'm sorry, I can't think of the oh my God, the Lakers coach fired, who also then went to the Suns. I'm so sorry, I'm blanking, but he's gotten multiple coaches fired. And he did the same thing with my favorite player of all time, Steve Nash, in Brooklyn. And I don't see it working out again. I'm not sure what he did to get the King's ransom in every single trade that he's been in. But that's my take on it, because I don't understand it. I don't like the man. He got swept by a 22-year-old Anthony Edwards, which to me is embarrassing, because even though Anthony Edwards is my favorite player in the NBA, you're Kevin Durant, and you get swept in the first round by a 22-year-old. Does that really scream great to you? Does that scream somebody who's going to lead you to a championship? Last season, he doesn't even make the playoffs when yes, Frank Vogel. Thank you, Dom. When 2/3 of the league have the chance to make the playoffs, especially with the play-in, and he doesn't even make it. Does that sound like somebody who's going to turn that ship to you? Does that sound like somebody you want to hitch your wagon to and say, hey, look, once we get you with your leadership, we're going to go to the top. We're going to hold the NBA Final Championship. Does that sound like somebody who's going to do that to you guys? I don't think so. Durant is a crybaby that's just too comfortable. Hashtag make the NBA competitive again. I could not agree with you more. He's absolutely comfortable with showing up in his Nike slides or whatever he's endorsed by that day, and going to the court, high probably, and shooting up jump shots, and just putting up his 20 to 25 a night, calling it a night, and saying, see you later. I completely agree. I think that Kevin Durant has gotten way too comfortable in his role, and I really do think that a reality check should have come to them this year, especially when the New York Knicks, of all teams, a team that does not have a coach right now, for crying out loud, said, we have no interest in you. If that's not a reality check, then I don't know what is. Houston should have followed in the New York Knicks' footsteps, but they didn't, and they are forever going to be clowns for it. I don't have anything really to get into when it comes to the CJ McCollum trade with the Pelicans and the Wizards, it was Sadiq Bey, C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and Jordan Poole. They swapped those players. I don't have a lot to get into on that matter. Obviously, New Orleans is looking to get a little bit younger. Let's see if they can harness a little bit of that scoring ability from Jordan Poole, kind of similar to what we were saying with the Celtics and Anthony Simons. If Jordan Poole can kind of harness in, kind of become a lot more disciplined and not just play like it's NBA blacktop, then maybe that's a good pickup for them. We'll see. But, it kind of just salary dump on both teams' ends. But to kind of close this out, I had a request from one of our best viewers, Dominic Hausberger. This is not about the NBA. This is not about basketball or the trade market. But Dominic Hausberger has requested in the comments that he has a little bit of a vent session and a rant session about Red Sox left fielder Jarren Duran. Now, I would like to say I think that I'm going to agree with a lot of things that he says, because Jarren Duran obviously this year has taken a major step back from last season. So I'll never forgive them for removing All-Star Team Up. Yep. And until they bring that back, I will not be buying another 2K. I hope they do, because it would be great to play it with you guys. But I would love to hear, Dom. I would love to hear your rant on Jarren Duran. We're going to have to get you in soon as a guest. We're going to have you actually be on camera and be talking to the camera and, have an actual face-to-face thing so the audience can see your face, hear your voice. But for now, this is kind of an impromptu episode. So, Red Sox left fielder Jarren Duran last season was an all-star, was the All-Star Game MVP, and appeared to be kind of somebody who you could hitch your wagon to be maybe not a franchise centerpiece, but a franchise cornerstone. He really was looking like he was on his way to becoming a really good player for this team, and this year it's regressed. Obviously there are so many things that happened in spring training that really by now is a lot of old news and ancient history, because the player who was involved and kind of in the eye of the storm of all of that drama is gone. He's now a San Francisco Giant, and unfortunately contributed to one of our losses against the Giants just a couple of days ago. But, again, we were all kind of hoping for either the same or an extra step up from Jarren Duran, and that's just not necessarily what we got. So, Dom, I'm sure you're kind of typing it right now. You kind of got your angry little Twitter fingers. Let's see what you got, man, because I'm really curious to hear what you have to say and kind of go back and forth with you on this, because I'm going to agree with you on a lot of it, I think. First of all, too, while Dom is chatting it up, I would like to say thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you for everybody to your contributions to this chat. I can't tell you how much your support is appreciated. I can't tell you how much it really kind of gets me and motivates me to get up and do these shows. When you guys comment, when you guys watch, when you guys show support on the Instagram. As you guys saw yesterday and today, I kind of started off doing a underrated prospect thing for a lot of players who I think rounds 2 through 7, or maybe an undrafted free agent linebacker, wink wink, maybe Dom knows who I'm talking about, Buffalo, and a lot of guys who I think are going to contribute to their teams, who haven't necessarily been highlighted, but some guys who I think will be an orange crusher. So, let's see. Dom says, you need Duran as a leader. If Rafi was a bad example, then you can't say Duran is a good example. He's not backing it up at the plate, the field, or the emotions. He's not a seasoned vet, but he's not a young player anymore. He's 29, needs to act like it on and off the field. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. You would really think, Dom, that as Rafael Devers goes to the Giants and gets traded to the Giants, that Jarren Duran would be like, all right, guys, look, I know that things are a little bit different now. I know that this team is very young and kind of have a direction of towards the future, and maybe not right now. But in the meantime, look, I may not have seen everything like Alex Bregman has, but I'm the leader of this team. I will take this and assume this leadership role because I've been here for a long time. Now that the longest tenured player on this team is gone, if I'm not mistaken, Jarren Duran is the longest tenured player on the Red Sox right now. And with that comes that leadership and kind of comes that seniority that you would expect of somebody to kind of just assume. And I agree with you, Dom. Like, look, there are jokes that are made about the comments that he made to the fan, but you know what? Those aren't good comments. Those comments got him suspended. Those comments got him in trouble and took away what was going to be a true Iron Man season. The only 2 games that Jarren Duran didn't play last season was because of when he made that slur to a fan. So he was going to play all 162 games besides that. And again, his stupidity got rid of that impressive trademark and that impressive notch on his belt for him. And it's because of his own mind, not because of any other injuries on the field. And this year, he has not backed up his talk and everything that he kind of just goes through. Now, look, I don't want to discredit him. I don't want to say he's terrible, because he's not terrible. He's fully capable of being hot. He's fully capable of getting those games where he goes off for 3 to 4 hits a game and propelling you to a victory. What we have seen of Jarren Duran is in there somewhere. And I agree that it is hidden within there somewhere, but he's not showing it, and it's been a major disappointment. They're dying for more leadership other than Bregman, and Duran is moving farther away from a leader than closer. Yeah, again, I couldn't agree with you more, Dom. Again, it really does feel like with Rafael Devers gone, this kind of should be the platform for him to take now and be like, again, look, I may not have won World Series like this guy. I may not have been to a lot of championships like this guy, or just a lot of playoff rounds in general. I may not have every single experience that you would want of a long tenured player and kind of locker room leader in the MLB. But guys, I have the drive to win. I am a All-Star Game MVP, and I know that may sound a chuckle funny, but at the time, for Red Sox fans at least, that was a huge deal. When we were a team that was kind of meddling in 500, and we still are, but last year meddling 500, do we have a direction? Are we going to make the playoffs? Are we going to be a playoff contending team? Are we going to miss it? To see our guys be represented in the playoff game amongst the league's best, and for our guy to go forward, play the best game, and get that trophy of All-Star Game MVP, that was a big deal. That was a big deal for Red Sox fans. And what has he done? It's kind of just seems like Jarren Duran just flushed it down the drain, if you ask me. And that's not what we want, And I said this on Conti and Nick. I would not be surprised if Jarren Duran, by the trade deadline, is gone. Who's to say? Because, the Red Sox have proven they'll do anything. Who's to say that it won't be sooner rather than later, kind of like they did with Rafael Devers? But I do kind of predict that by the trade deadline, that Jarren Duran is going to be gone. And Dom, I absolutely agree with you. Again, I would say that I think that Alex Bregman, just in terms of seniority, may be kind of like what I was talking about with the Celtics. Kind of be like, all right, Al Horford or Drew Holiday, but Alex Bregman is still that good, was playing at an MVP caliber level this season, and has the seniority and has the pedigree to be that leader and to lead that charge. So, I agree with you. Dom says, not to mention he's tanked his trade value. We have a logjam, but can't move off of him right now for a good return. I hope they'd wait till the deadline and he wakes up. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Red Sox, as of 12 minutes ago, 9:38, by the way, very, very weird starting time. I get they're on the West Coast, but couldn't have made it 9:40, couldn't have made it 9:45, but I digress. First pitch of the Red Sox against the Angels, Game 2 of the series, just started about 12 minutes ago. So, I mean, hey, I haven't obviously turned it on yet. I'm doing Ginormous. We'll see if he does anything. We'll see if he contributes anything to a victory. If he does, if he doesn't, and maybe that helps his trade value. And if he doesn't, maybe it further tanks it. So I really don't know. But Dom, I agree with you. I obviously, thank you for your contributions about this topic. And better words couldn't have been said. So we'll see what happens with Jarren Duran. We'll see what happens with the Red Sox. Obviously, they were on a hot streak, but now they've lost 3 straight. We'll see what happens there. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. So, guys, I would like to thank all of you. I think that's going to wrap this up for this impromptu episode of Ginormous. It's nice to be 5 episodes in. It's nice to have all you guys' support, viewership, and just all likes in general. to this page, to this podcast, and to Conti and Nick. Once again, Conti and Nick should be coming up with another episode in the near future. Will is, I believe, mentioned hopefully this week in the chat. In the Nick of Time will be coming out. Make sure you give that all your likes, shares, support, whatever, subscriptions. I'd like to thank all of you once again. Have a good rest of your night, and this has been GINORMOUS at Night.